Hey guys, this is Myleek. This is the My Taught You podcast, and I am here with a podcast that Toni and I have been plotting for weeks now. This is the New Year Books to Get Your Life Together in 2017 podcast with my good book friend Toni. Toni, did I get that one right?
It was a totally made up title, but that sounds good.
But that sounds good. So Toni is back for another podcast. And before I get started on this one, I feel compelled. I think someone wrote that I was like awful to you on the last podcast. And I was like, I don't know that people know our friendship very well. So I know Toni knows me and has known me for a long time. So she doesn't really care.
Yeah, I'll just go on record. Myleek is very matter of fact, and she does not like technical stuff. So the last time it's like, if there's anything that we can control, and that's, coming from, you're cutting your teeth in PR, like we got to control the controllables. So if there's some type of glitch on my end, if you too close to the microphone, if, your pod, something ain't working, like you're going to call it out because that's what we do. So it's not personal.
I know. And this is why we were friends, which is what I love. But yeah, someone said that and I was like, oh God, people don't know. Like we got that type of friendship where it's like, girl, come on. But anywho,
microphone, step back.
What's wrong with your microphone, girl? I know. Anywho. All right. So Toni put together this list of books to get your life together in 2017. So in this podcast, Toni and I are going to talk about books to get motivated and inspired, books to get disciplined and stop procrastinating, books to get past your personal blocks, books to start your own business, books to get spiritually centered, books to lose weight and get in shape, and books to build your circle and strengthen your friendships. And then we're going to end this podcast talking about our 2017 goals. As I was making my notes for this podcast, Toni, was thinking about what I know I definitely did wrong in 2016. Like, I think sometimes as I'm thinking about what I want to plot for 2017 and plan, I think about what in the heck went wrong? And I can definitely tell you what went wrong. So yeah, I just was like, what was not necessarily what went wrong, but what could I have done better? Like, there were two overarching things that by the time I got to December 1st, I was like, yeah, girl, you did that all wrong. So we're going to talk about that. But I feel like we should just get started. And I'm so curious to know, Toni, what are your books to get motivated and inspired?
Sure. I think just to take a step back, though, the context for this, how we started doing this was just the fact that, these next couple weeks at the end of December are kind of down weeks between, everybody going away for holidays and traveling and lots of plane, trips and car rides and just really kind of thinking about what is 2017 going to look like for your life. And I think this is the perfect time to kind of, step aside from the family festivities and, just kind of carve out some you time to really kind of set your year. And that's something that I always do. And I knew you do as well. So I just was curious to kind of find out, well, what types of books are on your list for setting your new year. So
yes.
I think, the first thing is just starting off with that motivation.
Yeah.
So how do we actually motivate ourselves to make all these changes in 2017? One that I like for this one is by Jeff Johnson. It's called Everything I'm Not Made Me Everything I Am.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it came out a few years ago. Kanye West, that's the title of his song, and he wrote the foreword for it. But Jeff has been super active across the media, across, activism with the NAACP, and a number of ventures. He's working with Steve Harvey on kind of some of his initiatives. And so he wrote this book that I think is really hardcore just in terms of looking at people who are successful, but know they're not doing everything that they can do to be the most successful.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's kind of it really is a kick in the butt. One of the things I love about it is just that he's very, very transparent in terms of where he's messed up.
Okay.
So instead of him leading, this book with, here's what I've done, here's why I'm so great, he actually shows you the ugly. He talks about being in college and partying and not having good grades. He talks about as a father when he was just really trying to build his career, how he was, pretty much not present for his kids.
Mm-hmm.
So he really reveals like the things that he's done. And then he comes back and actually tells you how he fixed it, and recommends that you do the same. Um,
Okay.
Another thing that I love about this book is that it asks you to be excellent in all areas of your life. So
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't let you off the hook. So he's talking about, he says being your best in one or two areas of your life isn't good enough. So when I talk about
Mm-hmm.
this being hardcore, like he's hardcore for real. Like,
But
don't read this
my
if you're
saying,
not ready.
don't read this if you're not ready. That's the thing. It's like, how you do one thing is how you do everything, and I think people think that, I can be really good in one area, but I can slack off in a ton of other areas. And it's like, no, you gotta, like, it has to be a habit across the board.
I love that. And he talks about it's like your personal best. It's that space in your life where you bring together the professional, the personal, and even the spiritual, and create a
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle in which you expect and accept nothing less than excellence every day. Your
Yes.
personal best will not allow you to be a successful business person, but a terrible father, or be a super mom who neglects her passion to become a professor. Um,
Yep.
so it's like if you need motivation, if you need somebody to kick your butt, like this is that book, and it's pretty actionable in terms of recommendations for getting ahead in your job and your relationships. So across the board. So that's kind of one that I want to spend some more time with. What about your motivational one?
Okay, so this is one. I will not have this many books for the rest of the topics, but for this one, I had 3 books to get motivated and inspired for 2017. First book that I think that you can read to get motivated and inspired is The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. I read this book 2 Thanksgivings ago when it first came out. So last Thanksgiving, not this one, this past one. And it was just such, I don't know, and not to be over dramatic, but such a beautiful read, I think. And when I think about motivation or inspiration, there were a couple of quotes that she said. She goes, about talking about lucky, and she says, lucky implies I didn't do anything. Lucky implies something was given to me. Lucky implies that I was handed something I did not earn, that I did not work hard for. Gentle reader, may you never be lucky. I am not lucky. You know what I am? I am smart. I am talented. I take advantage of the opportunities that come my way, and I work really, really hard. Don't call me lucky. Call me badass. And
Okay.
I remember highlighting that quote, and it's just like nothing bothers me more when people say like, oh, you're so lucky. And it's like, no, lucky is not what it is. And that's what I like when she said, gentle reader, may you never be lucky. Like that is just so
Because that's a
true.
fluke. If you're lucky, it's a fluke.
Yeah. Yeah. Another quote from Year of Yes is happiness comes from living as you need to, as you want to, as your inner voice tells you to. Happiness comes from being who you actually are instead of who you think you are supposed to be. And so that is something else that really resonated with me. I think so many people are seeking happiness, trying to become something that is not necessarily them. I think an inspired life is being exactly who you are, versus who you think you're supposed to be. And my final favorite quote is this: let's see, don't let what he wants eclipse what you need. He is very dreamy, she says, but he is not the sun you are. So Shonda talks about, not getting married. And I think for a lot of women who have succeeded, you can accomplish all these things, but there is always that sort of nagging thing in the background about maybe you're not married, or maybe you're not this. And so that's what she said. Because the guy that she was with wanted to be married. And she just was like, don't let what he wants eclipse what you need. He is very dreamy, but he is not the sun. You are. And so I just love that. Like, you are the sun. You do whatever it is that you want to do for your life. Agreed, Toni?
That's a good one. And it's so crazy because you've been recommending that forever and I still haven't read it.
I know. And when you came over, I was trying to find it and I still can't find it. So I know I have to find it. So, okay. Second one for this one is Very Good Lies by J.K. Rowling. Have you read that?
No, I haven't.
It's a super short book. It's 60 pages. It's a graduation speech, but it's like, if you're looking for like, sometimes when I want to get inspired, I don't want to do a deep dive. I want to do like a super swift kick in the butt. And this is one of those books, 60 pages. And J.K. Rowling is of Harry Potter. She writes the Harry Potter books, but she says, what we achieve inwardly will change our outer reality. And she says, you might never fail on the scale I did, but some failure in life is inevitable. It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. Girl, you know how that makes me feel. Like, the logic, like, it is impossible to live life without failing unless you live so cautiously that you might as well have not lived at all. Like, that just is like, I feel like something that I have learned as I have become an employer is that I employ a lot of young women early in their careers. And the hardest thing to convince them is that it is okay to make mistakes. It's like, mistakes are not going to get you fired. Lack of effort and trying and paralysis, so afraid that you do nothing is what ends up making it not work for us. So I just love that she was saying that, like, if you're living so cautiously, why are you here?
I think, though, it goes back to like the landscape we're in right now, where everybody is just seeing highlight reels on social media. So nobody knows that failure is the flip side of whatever success coin you're looking at. So we don't have the expectation that we should fail because we don't see that. And that's, you know, kind of some of my later recommendations. They talk about that. But I think everybody, especially the young people, they're just scared to fail because they think everybody out the gate knows how to do things.
They do. They don't realize that, I tell people all the time, I'm 37. I've been in the game a long time. Like, you think that's over a decade of working. Final line that I love is she says, as is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. I wish you all very good lives. And that is the title of the book, Very Good Lives. And I just think I don't know, like, if you're thinking about what is your mantra for 2017, I mean, very good life is really good.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And
all of those.
Yes. And the final book that I liked for getting motivated and inspired is a book that you didn't particularly care for, Toni.
Okay.
We talked about this and you were like, I don't want to read that. How to Be Here by Rob Bell.
I need to finish it. I need to give it more time.
Not so much?
I need to finish it, to be fair. Okay. I need to just devote myself to finishing it and, maybe it'll carry me the rest of the way. But why did that make your list? Because I don't remember you being that enthused about it when you started it.
It wasn't like, it is a very, very, very easy read. And that is sometimes, I think why I picked it for this selection is that sometimes we just can't do a deep dive. Your family's around, you're reading a book, the TV's on, you're helping cook. And maybe you don't want to go to that deep emotional space. And a couple quotes. First one, far too often, we don't start because we can't get our minds around the entire thing. We don't take the first step because we can't figure out the 17th step. But you don't have to know the 17th step. You only have to know the first step because the first number is always 1. Start with 1. And I just really love that. It's like so often. Yeah. So often people write me and they are asking me all these questions. And I'm like, honey, they want to know, should they open an online store in the market? I'm like, first step, just start with 1 step. Figure out if this is something that people need. And I don't know that people know this. Before I started Curlbox and spent any real money on a website or packaging or boxes or anything, I launched the splash page with email signups. And I was like, if a certain number of people sign up for this business, that will let me know that they are interested, thus will buy. So the first day that we launched the Curlbox splash page, we had 1,000 people sign up. That let me know that people were interested. Did the same thing recently with the My Taught You retreat. It's like, I was working with someone who was like brainstorming and we're trying to plan for the retreat, and she's giving me all these numbers and worst case scenarios. I'm like, girl, we're not gonna get into this worst case scenario. We're gonna find out if people actually want to come. And that is pretty much what I did. And so 2 more quotes from Rob Bell. And I saw Rob Bell speak at Oprah's Best Life Tour. You went with me to that. Did you see Rob Bell speak there?
I saw him. I was there. Yeah.
I saw him, girl.
You're fascinated by him. You love him.
I'm fascinated by him. And what's so crazy is that on my desk right now, as we're talking, I have my little gold notebook, and I remember taking notes from when he spoke at Oprah's Best Life Tour. And I had never read any of his books at that point, but he was just like, I have Rob Bell. These are my notes. Amazing storyteller. He just talks about the universe has been generous. The life you want begins by embracing what does it say? By embracing the things you have. Modern world has things you can prove. I don't know. My notes are pretty, awful,
I do remember one thing that you just kept harping on was like, and I did read that in Be Here, or what is it called? How to Be Here Now.
Yeah.
Where he talks about the first thing that anybody can say about you is that you received a gift. And that's the gift of breathing, so you received is the first thing that's true about you. And I know you really like that.
I really do like that. And so 2 more super quick quotes is he says, better to have a stomach full of butterflies than to feel like your life is passing you by. And I always say that. I think people feel those anxious moments and they allow those anxious moments to cripple them versus realizing that like, it is better to feel that than to let life pass you by. And the last one is, it is important to embrace several truths about yourself and those around you, beginning with this one. Who you aren't isn't interesting. Ooh, girl.
Right.
Who you are not is not interesting. And that's what's so crazy. Remember, we were just reading through those applications. You were over just last weekend. Me, you, Diana, were reading through these applications, and it's like all these people who are writing about who they're not. You're like, ugh. I just feel like we have to do a better job of telling our stories. And it's like, if you want to be motivated in 2017, you have to tell your story better. Do not tell your story as, I am a divorced mother of 2, blah, blah, blah. That's not who you are. That's what happened to you. Mm-hmm. Circumstance. So, all right. Let me get off my let me get off my soapbox.
No, this is the soapbox episode. So yeah,
the soapbox episode. All right, I'm so curious to know, what do you want to read or have you read to get disciplined and stop procrastinating?
Yeah, so I think this is perfect. The perfect follow up to the last, the getting motivated. Okay, so it's like you're motivated now, but how do you actually get some shit done?
Right.
Can we cuss on this podcast? I don't know.
Yes, you can. Okay, this is your world, honey.
Okay. So just to kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about, like when you said being crippled, that Rob Bell was talking about, my recommendation for becoming disciplined, overcoming procrastination is a very, very popular book that a lot of people still don't know about. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Have you read that one?
I haven't, nor have I heard of it. I feel like you have done me a disservice in our book friendship.
I didn't think you needed to get shit done. But if you don't, so the first thing I'll say about this is just a disclaimer for anybody out there listening. Don't be misled by the title that is called The War of Art. The subtitle is Break Through the Blocks and Win Your Inner Creative Battles. But this is not just for people who are writers or artists or do anything necessarily creative. And the whole premise of this book is Stephen Pressfield first explains what he calls the force of resistance, and he capitalizes resistance with a capital R And he describes resistance as pretty much any act that rejects immediate gratification in favor of long-term growth, health, or integrity, or expressed another way, any act that derives from our higher nature instead of our lower. Um,
Interesting.
and he kind of goes through and he has this list of resistance greatest hits. And so pretty much what he's saying is that you have to pit yourself against this powerful force of resistance, which is trying to stop you from being better. And he kind of just breaks down when you're going to encounter it. So any diet or health regimen, any activity whose aim is tighter abdominals, education of every kind, the launching of any entrepreneurial venture or enterprise for profit or otherwise, just anything that you're doing to be better.
Okay.
And he kind of breaks down the forms that it takes, just when you're going to experience it. But the answer to overcoming resistance is what he describes as turning pro. And this is what I love. It's a very short book. It's, just really short chapter pages, but turning pro is how you defeat resistance. And this is something that, as you of course know, I write kind of on the side, but, I hear people talk about writer's block. And I've always said, I can't afford the luxury of writer's block. Like if I don't write at certain times in my life, I didn't eat.
Right.
And when people talk about writer's block, I'm like, I'm sure you can send a text. I'm sure you can write an email. You don't have writer's block. You don't want to write what you're supposed to be writing.
Right.
And so Stephen Pressfield breaks down like what the mindset of a professional is. So things like a pro views her work as craft, not art. Not because she believes art.
Wait. Repeat that. Because that's
I need to hear this one again.
Yeah, I need to hear that again.
A pro views her work as craft, not art. Not because she believes art is devoid of a mystical dimension. On the contrary, she understands that all creative endeavor is holy, but she doesn't dwell on it. She knows if she thinks about that too much, it will paralyze her. So she concentrates on technique. The professional masters how and leaves what and why to the gods. Like Somerset Maugham, she doesn't wait for inspiration. She acts in anticipation of its apparition. The sign of the amateur is overglorification of and preoccupation with the mystery. The professional shuts up. She doesn't talk about it. She does her work.
Ooh, wait. Go back to the amateur. Please do repeat the amateur.
The sign of the amateur is overglorification of and preoccupation with the mystery. So that's where we talk about, kind of that, what's my 17th step or the mystery of starting a business and, but you know how to start. No, the professional shuts up. She doesn't talk about it. She does her work.
The over glorification of the mystery. That's just so wonderfully said.
Oh yeah. He's hardcore.
I love that. And what's the name of that book again, Toni?
The War of Art. It is so hard to not get mixed up.
I know, it's a tongue twister. The War of Art. So this is your Get Disciplined and Stop Procrastinating book.
Yeah. And it's like I said, each chapter is like a page. So it's really hard hitting, just little snippets. And again, it starts off kind of letting you know how cunning the force of resistance is. And then it just tells you the answer to overcoming any resistance with what you're trying to do is to turn pro. And that's something I know for a fact. Like I said, in writing, you demystify, I'm a writer. So no, it's not. You need some copy. You need this done. I need to set up a Shopify store. I need to get an ISBN. I need a domain. Like you demystify that process and stop romanticizing what it is you're trying to accomplish.
The mystery. Girl, I love that. And Toni, be sure. So this was the deal. We need to encourage Toni to email me her list as soon as we get off this, because email me so that I can put it in the notes.
Yep.
Did you have another book for this section?
No, it's a one-hitter quitter. Like you can just stop it.
Don't worry, because there are some sections that I have no books for. So Toni asked some questions and I was like, girl, I don't have any books for this, but I am so curious to hear what you think I should read. For Get Disciplined and Stop Procrastinating, I really like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, who's Oprah's a fan of him. One of my friends, like when this book came out or people were reading it and it was popular, I was just kind of like, more of the same. But my friend Lauren suggested that I read it, and it really, I was in Miami And I was really just seeking some clarification. Like I was in a relationship that I think I knew wasn't going to work out. And I just was like, okay, I'm in a shaky part of life. So you know me, when I'm in a shaky part of life, I go to Miami. So
It's at the Fontainebleau, yes.
I know, I know. So he says, realize deeply that the present moment is all you have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. And I think as I was reading this book, like I'm looking at the person and I'm like, is this a person that I want to be with in the future? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this person ain't even working now. You know, it's like, I think I got consumed with like,
Well,
can
how's it
they
gonna get better? I love that.
Yes. Can they get, I was so like, okay, well, if they get help for this, they can be better in the future. Like, and this just really dialed me back to the moment. Like, is this working for you right now? It's not. So if it's not working for you right now, stop romanticizing this hopeful future that you're hoping for. You know what I mean? Like, it was like, okay. And then it was this other quote. It says, love is not selective, just as the light of the sun is not selective. It does not make one person special. It is not exclusive. Exclusivity is not the love of God, but the love of ego. However, the intensity with which true love is felt can vary. There may be one person who reflects your love back to you more clearly and more intensely than others. And if that person feels the same toward you, it can be said that you are in a love relationship with him or her. So
Wait, that's got like 50 different layers. Like,
that's layers.
whoa.
Okay. So it says that the intensity with which true love is felt can vary, right? So true love can vary. And it says, and I know this is why Lauren wanted me to read this. There may be one person who reflects your love back to you more clearly and more intensely than others.
I think the thing, like the when you first started, where you said, what is that? Something about the exclusivity of love is something from the ego that's not of God. Read that.
Right. Okay. So that says, love is not selective, just as the light of the sun is not selective. Meaning, love is not for some people.
Right.
Which I used to feel too. Like, why do I keep seeing all these wedding photos and engagement photos? Like, am I out? Am I not? And it's just like, love is not selective, just as the light of this, like the sun doesn't choose to shine on certain people. It does not make one person special. It is not exclusive. It's not exclusive. Exclusivity is not the love of God, but the love of ego.
Oh, that's deep. Yes, that's good stuff. My therapist recommended this, but she said to listen to the audio version because she said it's pretty dense.
Yes.
So
I think that I would go back and listen to the audio of this, like that I would keep the audio of this like playing while I cook, because it is very heavy. It is like every sentence is rich. It was hard to read because you're like, I'm out on the beach and I got my highlighter and I'm like, girl, am I about to highlight this whole damn book? I'm about to wet up this whole book with highlighter?
Right.
And then the sentence after that, Toni says, the bond that connects you with a person is the same bond that connects you with the person sitting next to you on a bus or with a bird, a tree, a flower. Only the degree of intensity with which it is felt differs, So it's like we get love all the time from everyone, but how we feel it, the degree at which we feel it differs.
Okay, adding that to my list.
Yes. If you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. Primary reality is within, secondary reality without. Girl. So when we get our inner shit together, our outer stuff falls into place. And I think you as my friend know that.
I was like, we're living testimony.
Little testimony about to happen. You know that as my friend, that when I stopped and took the time to do my inner work, all of a sudden my life just... Like, for people who think I like fully have it together, it's together. The outer is together because I did the inner work.
Yeah.
And it's hard. And final is where there is anger, there is always pain underneath. So I just think you see angry people. It's just a way, like, I think that the way that I have sort of like started to feel for people is like, when there is anger, when somebody is angry, instead of responding with anger, I'm like, there's pain there, you know, and trying to assess and address the pain versus versus reacting to the anger.
Malik, are you coming over to my side? To the
Vague.
soft marshmallow side?
No, but I'm open.
Okay. That sounds like something I would say. You know, they're suffering, they're struggling with stuff.
I know. What are you over there sipping on? What do you got?
I have a Strongbow apple cider.
Strongbow apple cider. All right. I've
You
got
have your Vouv.
Vouv on ice. I put it on ice. I know. You know me. That, and while you're talking, I'm sucking down this Larissa's Kitchen Korean barbecue beef jerky, which is really tasty. I didn't get a chance to eat, which is the story of my life. And so you know how this goes. Second book. It's my second book for getting disciplined and stop procrastinating is a book that I've never ever shared that I have read with people. And I was like, why haven't you shared this book? And it's like, are you embarrassed to share this book? Like,
Wait,
what's up?
Exclusive? Okay.
I don't know. This is it. Like, listen,
First time ever heard.
drop the music, like drop the thunder. Exclusive. 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do by Amy Morin. And I've seen it in Target a bunch of times. I think that's where I got it. But these are the 13 things she says mentally strong people don't do.
Don't do. Okay.
They don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. They don't give away their power. They don't shy away from change. They don't focus on things they cannot control. They don't worry about pleasing everyone. They don't fear taking calculated risks. They don't dwell on the past. They don't make the same mistakes over and over. They don't resent other people's success. They don't give up after the first failure. They don't fear alone time. They don't feel the world owes them anything. And they don't expect immediate results.
Oh, wow.
Girl.
Okay.
Hello. Okay.
I haven't even heard of that one. It's popular.
It's a good one. I have it. If you want to read it, I have it next time you come over. It's good. It's that one is 13 Things Mentally Strong People Don't Do. And a quote from there is, deliberate practice is more than natural talent. Although we're often led to believe that we're either gifted with natural born talent or we aren't, most talents can be cultivated through hard work. Research studies have found that after 10 years of daily practice, people can surpass others with natural talent in chess, sports, music, and the visual arts. After 20 years of dedicated practice, many people who lack natural talent can gain world-class achievement. But often we believe if we aren't born with a specific gift, we won't ever be able to develop enough talent to become successful. This belief can cause you to give up before you've had a chance to cultivate the skills necessary to succeed.
No, that's church right there.
Church. That's real church. So that's a book that I was like, why haven't I ever shared that I read this book? And so that's one of the books that I felt would be fitting for your getting disciplined and stop procrastinating. Like, you need to know that like you may not have been born with the skills, but you've given up before you even gave yourself a chance to cultivate the skills you need to succeed.
The crazy thing though is that I feel like if people just exercise, like, you know, Stephen Pressfield said, turn it into a craft, what she's saying about just consistently acquiring skills, you probably would be good enough and you probably would be happy. Like, you probably can get good enough to make some form or fashion of success and you'd be fine.
I agree. So I'm really wanting to know what books you think people can read to get past their personal blocks.
Now, this is an interesting one because I focus more on a specific area of personal blocks. So one that I would like to kind of address in the coming year is definitely personal blocks when it comes to relationships. So, you know, as my friend, I've accomplished lots of things in a lot of areas in life. But, you know, it's kind of hard to make a million changes in one year.
It is.
So this year I really was focused on career, kind of just lifestyle, finances, those types of things. And I thought that I would get around to relationships, but it just didn't get on the list this year. So
it happens.
Yeah. And so I think for me, and this is just, a little personal tidbit, but we're both in Atlanta, and Atlanta has a reputation of the dating scene and what that looks like. And I've never subscribed to that. I've always believed that, whoever we're meant to be with, we're going to be with. And it doesn't matter your zip code, it doesn't matter your age, your weight, your race, like whoever you're supposed to be with, you'll end up with them. There's no force on earth that can stop you from being who you're meant to be with.
I agree.
And so with that being said, I think that there's a lot of things that people do personally that actually block them from being open to whoever they're meant to be with. And so as I look at, kind of taking personal responsibility across all areas of my life, one book that was pretty helpful that I'm going to be revisiting is in terms of relationships, and it's called Calling in the One. 7 Weeks to Attract the Love of Your Life by
I
Catherine
read this.
Wilbur Thomas. Did you?
I did. I read this, girl, when I was like 28.
Really?
Girl, and didn't call in the one. Clearly.
It took a while for your order to go through.
But I did read it. I just don't think I was mentally ready at the time. But one of my friends suggested that I read it, but I did read that.
I think the thing about this one is that, are you getting echo feedback?
I know, I'm good.
Okay. She talks about just the mental, and I think one thing that I noticed with my suggestions, and probably you'll agree with your suggestions, is that all of the books that we're recommending really talk about your mental state and all of the changes and everything we're talking about. Like, none of it is necessarily concrete, but it's really addressing your thought process. And so with this book, she calls it a course. And each week she has it broken down by different exercises that you're supposed to do, just in terms of kind of going through and excavating all of those issues. Again, what I call personal blocks. So just kind of with your thinking around relationships. So one that I found particularly interesting and pertinent is lesson 10, releasing toxic ties. And
oh, did you?
I just, it doesn't really apply, but I just thought it was interesting. But but she just talks about, kind of maintaining, she says all relationships are an energy exchange. Each connection either feeds us power or it sucks it away, i.e. draining our energy. If we saw all of our relationships from this perspective, we would see that toxic ties are those attachments that cause us to lose personal power. He says the associations we form have the capacity to nurture and inspire our growth, catapulting us into being the best that we can possibly be. However, the flip side is also true. Sometimes we form attachments that can and do block the experience and expression of love in our lives. The most obvious example of this is, of course, a romantic attachment to a person who, for whatever reason, is unwilling or unable to love us. So, not that applies, but
not that applies to me. I'm just giving out
for
tips
out there,
to other
right?
People,
right.
I'm just talking about this for a friend,
right, a friend of mine. But and I mean, it hurts, and so I think if we're all being honest about our personal blocks, these are things that we hold on to. These are stories that we tell ourselves that we say, oh, it's not important. It doesn't matter. And not that you have to believe everything that she talks about in this book, but what she does do is kind of uncover those aspects where you could potentially be blocked. And I think the shorthand for this particular one is that if a relationship is not giving you energy, then it's probably draining your energy and it's a toxic tie. So, those types of things, very concrete. And to me, it's kind of hard to find books that are concrete in terms of spiritual work, or just kind of soul emotional work. And she does an excellent job of really, giving you exercises and concrete actionable things that you can do around these blocks.
Oh, yeah. I read that a while ago, but I do remember that it was an insanely effective book. That you have to be. Go ahead. What's your other one?
I was going to say the other one that I actually want to read, I've read before, but this book, when I tell you this is some work, this one is some work, and it's called Keeping, what is it called? Is it Keeping the Love You? Oh, it's on my bookshelf, and I'll grab it. But it's Harville Hendrix.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds familiar. Keeping the love you
fine. Let me see. It's
Keeping the love you find. I'm finding it. Keeping the love you find. I'm googling it now because I feel like I remember that by Harville Hendrix.
yeah.
Because there's that one, getting the love you want.
That's the one for couples.
Okay.
But the other one is the one that he has for singles. And when I tell you this is some work, this book, he really has you kind of dig through to your parents, every relationship that you've been through. And he asks you to really kind of make those connections. He asks you to talk about places of yourself that you've repressed and how you kind of work through that in relationships. Like, it's a lot of work. And so that one is one that, I've really put off because, again, like I said, it really requires, it's called Keeping the Love You Find, a personal guide. So that one really requires some, your pencil, your paper, your markers, your wine, and but
Honey,
it really gives
wine out.
Yeah, you need a few bottles.
I'm looking at the reviews and somebody says this book is not handing out easy answers. The book's main focus is helping you dig up your personal info, such as upbringing, dating history, sexual history, self-opinion, personality, dreams, etc. When you understand more about yourself, you understand what you need.
And for me, the thing with this book is that, I've thought, okay, I made these changes in my life. I'm ready for a relationship. And it's like, well, why? Because I've made changes. Like, that's good enough. And it's like, I made
changes. Okay, duh.
I'm a better person. It's like, have you gone through and have you really looked at how your parents affected you? Have you looked at the stories that you tell yourself and how that affects your dating life? Have you looked at the choices you've made and how that's played out in your actions? And until the answer is yes, like, you're probably not ready. So this book gives you kind of the tools to be able to answer yes to those questions. So
interesting. All right. I have only one book for this, and I was like, oh gosh, this girl's asking some deep questions. Getting past your personal blocks, I went with Daring Greatly by Brene Brown. I love Brene. Okay. And Brene is like, because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. And for me, I think that, like, I do things publicly that are at times scrutinized. I'll say things like, I said something about asking to pick people's brains, or I'll say something about, insisting that your friends support you. And I talked about you in my podcast that I did on that, Toni. By the way, you should listen. If you were my friend, you would listen to my podcast.
I actually did. See that?
Oh my God. Most of my friends don't listen to my podcast, but I'm like, whatever. But it was just the thing of, like, when we are presenting our authentic and perfect selves, sometimes I will want to delete things because I'm like, oh my God, if one person doesn't like this, that means more people don't like this. And I shouldn't do things that people don't like. And it's like, I should do things that are authentic to me and be okay with people not liking it, because this is me being myself, and me being myself is not 100% liked by everyone, and that's okay.
I think you've mastered that. I mean, I don't know that we see the struggle that you may have with that, because I think everybody's perception is you keep it 100% real, like it or hate it. But I think, like you said, there's a kind of behind the scenes, should I really put this out there? And I think you hold true to actually putting things out there that aren't necessarily popular.
It's a struggle. And it's a thing of, like, I mean, even when someone commented and it's still up, it's on the iTunes comment about, people were saying, like, how I treated you as my friend. And it's like, that hurt my feelings. And I think that, like, the first thing that I have to do, like, the first thing that I do when I see things like that is like, oh my God, did she feel that way? Let me call. And I didn't feel like you did, but I was like, let me call her. Like, let me talk to you about it. And when I talked to you about it, you were like, girl, I'm not tripping about that. And I'm just like, have to remind myself that, like, there's a difference between the people who pseudo know me publicly and the people who really know me. And my true checks and balances comes with the people that really know me. If I personally offend the person who really knows me, then I have a problem. You know what I mean? Everything else is just perception, I guess.
And I mean, I think one of the things I have learned from you is just, you said something a long time ago. Like, if you didn't say it to me, you didn't say it.
Yep.
And you don't, like, if we don't have a conversation about an issue, then it's not an issue. Like, if it's actually an issue, you'll bring it to me. We can talk through it. We can work through it. But if you don't give me that opportunity, then it's not that big a deal. And, our friendship stays intact because we can have those conversations. And I think you've also taught me when you value people enough, you have those conversations. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so all the extra and all that, other stuff, and I heard she said, and I think she thinks, and, it's like, no, we talked about that, or she didn't bring that up to me. So, everything is fine. I think we know, if either one of us can bring something up to the other, like, it's fine. So,
Exactly. And that's the thing where I'm just like, if I didn't say it to you, consider it unsaid. If somebody don't say it directly to me, consider it unsaid.
it makes life so much easier that way.
It does. And Brene has a phenomenal TED Talk, if you're wondering. But in this book, she says, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage, truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness.
Oh, that's deep.
Vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they're never weakness. And I think that like truth and courage. And so it's like when I'm speaking, it's like, this is my truth. This is the truth according to me. It may not be your truth. And I just have to be okay and have the courage to be me and not be weak about it. So that's why I really love that book for like a personal block, because so many people don't share socially and don't share who they are with people because they're so worried about what other people are going to say. And I wanted to use this book as a reference to say that like I still get plagued with the same thing. I still am affected by what people think and say, but I just have to remind myself, that that's not like I can't live a life based on what strangers think and feel about me. Final quote that I have for this is, even to me, the issue of stay small, sweet, quiet, and modest sounds like an outdated problem. But the truth is that women still run into those demands whenever we find and use our voices. So I find that when I use my voice, it's not sweet, it's not quiet, it's not modest, it's not small. But you know what I get so mad about, Toni, is that like you look at a Gary Vee, you look at a Tony Robbins, they can be like, get your shit together.
Yes.
I say it. If I say it, it's like she's rude.
Yeah.
She's very rude. She's very rude. And I'm just like, why can you take that from them, but you can't hear it from me? And it bothers me, but I don't stop with my truth because I'm just like, I'm not going to stay small, sweet, quiet, and modest. I'm going to give you the truth.
And there's a lane of people who appreciate that, our approach
I
is
agree.
completely different. Whereas I'm like, oh, it's okay, sweetie pie. And you're like, no, that shit ain't cool. Like, so some people want the sugar cube and some people want, the whip. So it's just your personal preference.
Sugar and whip. You choose. So our next book was Books to Start Your Own Business. I didn't have a book, but then I got a book. So what do you think?
This is a book that I don't know that you're the biggest fan of, but
Probably not.
I don't think you are. So this one is a very popular one, and I actually shied away from it because usually when things are popular, I just think they're just mass marketed and watered down, and if everybody likes it, then I'm
Classic artist behavior.
Right. It's mainstream. But this one is very popular, and when I read it, I actually loved it. It's Girl Boss by Sophia Amoruso of Nasty Gal.
No comment.
Okay. Why I like this book for people who are starting a business is that she does not glorify her story. And if you read this book, her story is very, it's kind of legendary now, but it's kind of the same thing with you. People see kind of the end result and they think, oh, you've had this charm road to starting your business and you had these connections when you started and, you knew this person and you were already cool. That's not the case. And she actually breaks this down So her story is that, when she started her business, she pretty much said that she had time to do it because she had a hernia and she took a job as a security guard at college. So she had time during the evening to work on it. Like, how unglamorous is that? That's nasty. It's just
Mm-hmm.
gross. But she talks about, kind of starting off on eBay and just kind of the thought process behind how she differentiated her photos from other sellers. But one part I love is when she talks about just kind of how her mom and her had this whole system going. So she would go to these thrift stores, nasty, grungy, grimy thrift stores, dig through the merchandise. She's like, you get your hands poked by pins. It's dirty. It's nasty. But I would haggle over 70 cents. I get merchandise, come back. Me and my mom had this assembly line. She would steam the stuff. She would call out the measurements. I write it down. I write this description. And I just had this image of just this, again, going back to the technique and the craft. Like, if you had a process and a system for getting your merchandise, for doing your product descriptions, for loading them up, like, people would see success,
Right.
but they just want to look and see, fast forward, 15 years and you see the investors and you see the website, but this is the meat of this story. And,
Mm-hmm.
kind of when you were reading the Shonda Rhimes quote, is really interesting because she has a similar quote about luck. And she says, I hate the concept of luck, especially when people try to apply it to me.
Yep.
Yes, it's true. Hundreds of thousands of businesses failed. Mine succeeded. Was that all just because I got lucky? I really don't think so. What I hate about luck is that it implies being devoid of responsibility. It implies that you can do nothing and then step into success as easily as stepping into a pile of dog poop on the sidewalk. It implies that success is something given to a knighted and often undeserving few. Luck tells us that we don't control our own fate and that our path to success is written by someone or something entirely outside ourselves. Luck lets us believe that whatever happens, whether good or bad, is not to our credit or our fault. So it's like exactly what Shonda was saying. Um, and so I think for people who want to start a business, it's less about, I mean, you can find any book on the particular business that you're trying to start. But this one, I think if you really understand and hear what she's saying, you'll see that one, it's not that she's special. I mean, she has some opportunities, but you kind of create those opportunities through your efforts. And it's not glamorous in the beginning. She talks about, for 2 years, I gave up, kind of my social life. You talked about it. Other people do, but nobody wants to hear that. Um, and so I think, her story kind of combines somebody who has success and still challenges. If you look at the company right now, you've got some challenges that she's had along the way, but that's all real. So that is my recommendation, kind of for people starting the business. And it's not just kind of glossing over and getting to the fun parts. She's very self-deprecating. She really is like, I didn't know what was going on when I was talking to the investors. I had no clue. But she kind of walks you through all that. So what is your recommendation for starting a business? I'm very curious.
Well, I mean, I enjoy Girl Boss. There were just, I think, as someone in business, it's like there is that part. I think that the glorified story of like, oh God, struggle, struggle. But then realizing that after you take on investors and after you grow, like there's still a level of responsibility, whether you didn't know anything or not, like you then are forced to teach yourself things. And so that was just sort of like my deal. And I don't know, maybe I'm slightly jaded because I read some articles about like all the lawsuits
Mm-hmm.
and like all the people who were getting pregnant or that were sick that were getting like fired or laid off. And that just kind of like, I was like, whoa.
Well, people just get the preliminary part. So
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, from the preliminary part, I totally get that. But from just me just reading things online, which are not necessarily fact, but these are lawsuits and anybody can read these. And I'm just like, oh, wow. Like, you just have to dig into your business. And there's so many people who have people working for them. And I'm like, I bet you the person who started this company doesn't know that the person who's working for them is doing this, and this. And it's hard when you get big to know what all 200 or 300 or 80 people are doing. But I just think it's important.
no, I totally can see that. So what is yours? Since you're not the
Mine
biggest fan of this one.
Mine is, I was like, I honestly don't have one here. If I had to think of one, it would be one that I've shared, I think, on another book podcast that I did by myself. And it's The E Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber.
Yeah,
And I think that one of the things about starting a business and being an entrepreneur that people don't understand is that it is typically not what we think it is. And he says, contrary to popular belief, my experience has shown me that the people who are exceptionally good in business aren't so because of what they know, but because of their insatiable need to know more.
that's a good one.
And he says, like, I think in his book, and I don't have notes on this, but in his book, he says, like, people will go into business and say, oh, I'm a good interior designer. I do really good furniture, or I make really good cupcakes. I should start a business. And he doesn't think, he's like, a business is three things: sales, marketing, and operations. If you don't like or enjoy those three things, you need to hire against those. But a business is not about your fantastic design skills or interior decor skills or your lovely cupcakes. It is about marketing, sales, and operations. And I think that people don't realize that. He says the difference between great people and everyone else is that great people create their lives actively while everyone else is created by their lives, passively waiting to see where life takes them next. The difference between the two is living fully and just existing.
That is a classic one. I love how he breaks down kind of those standard operating procedures, and he talks about, the McDonald's system. And everybody who works at McDonald's knows how to make the same hamburger. So no matter whether you go to McDonald's in Fresno or you go
Yep.
to McDonald's in, like New York, you're going to get that same hamburger, one bun, one patty, two pickles, ketchup,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a system.
Yep.
And I think, kind of demystifying that whole business process, into like, what is your system? What is your underlying system? Is what a lot of people miss. So I think both of our books are kind of non-traditional recommendations, probably for what people would expect we would say.
Probably. And my favorite line that he says, and I had to think about this as I was a few months ago when we were having our first sort of like shipment in the warehouse, the new space, and it was the same week that I had planned my week off. And I was like, oh God, do I cancel my week off because I need to be there? And he says, if your business depends on you, you don't own a business, you have a
You
job.
have a job. Yeah.
And it's the worst job in the world because you're working for a lunatic.
That is the truth. That's a good one. That's classic.
Yeah.
What about I don't know if we talked about it before, but the 4 hour work week. How did you feel about that one?
I remember reading it, and I mean, I love Tim Ferriss. I just think that there's just a level of like, I don't think anybody works a 4 hour work week, and I don't think Tim Ferriss does either. All them damn podcasts he does, like, he's
No.
not working a 4 hour work week. I like how he is the person who taught me that I should consider revenue and income a stream that didn't require my person 100% of the time,
Mhm.
like something like consulting or like something that demanded my brain around the clock. It's like you need to set up, like you said, a system that you can do anywhere that operates without you. And I feel like for the last 5 years, this February, that I've had that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that book opens people's eyes to, kind of that whole business model um, that's not tied to you and who you are. So I love it for that.
Yeah. So, what book do you recommend for getting spiritually centered?
So this one is probably, I thought about the one that I have for motivation, the Everything I'm Not, Maybe Everything I Am by Jeff Johnson. And that one, like I said, is hardcore, is getting a bunch of things accomplished. It's being your personal best. But the one that I have for spiritual um, centeredness is kind of the opposite of that, in that it asks you to stop pursuing busyness for busyness sake,
Okay.
and to really kind of look at the goals that you're setting and what they really mean in the long term.
Okay.
And that book is Make It Happen by Laura Casey. Surrender your
You
fear, take
love you some Laura Casey. I knew that. I was like, you
it.
girl, you love Laura.
I do love Laura Casey. So she is the founder, editor, publisher of Southern Weddings magazine. She has a business where she produces these goal sheets and stationery. And I think she just does an excellent job of being very transparent, number one, in terms of her family life, her life as a entrepreneur, her marriage, and just her struggles with faith and the things that, she's found to be effective in encouraging people in that. Um, and just really, I like people who just tell the whole story. Um, as much as I like
Right.
to see pretty pictures and, like hear about success stories, I want to hear about your struggles. Like, I can't really respect somebody if I don't know what you've been through. That's what I respect more than just the fact that you've been able to achieve success. Like, what mountains and alligators did you have to kill to get there? Um,
Right.
and so she does a great job with that, especially kind of with her blog and, even talking about wrestling with social media and stepping away from that. And so I think it's helpful to kind of see somebody who's able to be successful through these challenges. Even though I still have these challenges right now today, I'm still going to write a book about it. I'm still going to share with you guys my process for goal setting. I'm still going to sell you some stuff. I don't have to be perfect to
Right.
help you and encourage you. Um, so her book is again true to form, very transparent in terms of challenges she experienced, kind of with her marriage and having children. But she really kind of brings you back to what is your purpose and what does your future life look like? And just kind of, she talks to people who are super busy. So she says, read this question very slowly to let it marinate in your heart. Are you striving to keep your machine running? Can you imagine living the way you are now with no time, peace, or rest for another year or even another day? What would happen if you put on the brakes and stopped the machine?
Mm.
Um, so she just kind of talks about, kind of relating things back to, and I mean, just disclaimer, it's a very Christian book. So if that's not your thing, substitute God with, whatever you'd like to, but she does reference scripture and things like that. But her formula, and I think it applies no matter what your religious views are, is my life plus God's way equals living on purpose.
Mm.
What she means by that is God's way is the way of purpose, of living intentionally in order to love others. It's the way of rest coupled with meaningful work. It's the way of true balance and lasting success. It's not about us. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. And she says,
Mm-hmm.
what would your life look like and feel like if you follow God's math instead of the world's? And so I think those themes and those questions are helpful. And then she has like a kind of full holistic goal setting process that she always wants people through on her blog every year. And again, the goal sheets that she sells tie back into those. But it's a fuller process here in the book, which is excellent for the end of the year because you kind of go through, evaluate your year. You kind of look at, the clutter in your life. You really take some time to set those goals. So not kind of those, ABC, I want $5,000 in savings, but just really like, what difference am I making? And letting those other kind of material goals fall away. So it's kind of like the opposite of Jeff's book, but I think the two kind of go hand in hand,
Mm-hmm.
um, kind of starting with these larger thoughts about kind of your purpose and meaningful goals, and then using Jeff's book to kind of motivate you to just kind of dominate that list. So,
All right. Getting spiritually centered, honey.
yes. Did you have one for this one?
I was on the fence, but I'm not sure if I shared this. But I am a Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz girl. So, four agreements: be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, always do your best. And two quotes: if someone is not treating you with love and respect, it is a gift if they walk away from you. If that person doesn't walk away, you will surely endure years of suffering with him or her. Walking away may hurt for a while, but your heart will eventually heal. Then you can choose what you really want. You will find that you don't need to trust others as much as you need to trust yourself to make the right choices. And so, me, you choose, you choose, you choose. And when it comes to getting spiritually centered, I had to really think about all of the things that I felt were happening to me and realizing that they were from the choices that I made, you know?
Mm, that's deep.
So there's another quote that says, God is life. God is life in action. The best way to say, I love you, God, is to live your life doing your best. And that's what I always tell people is that you say you're faithful, but you won't take a risk. When you hear that call or you feel that nudge in your stomach, that is God communicating with you. And if you are faithful, you listen. And so I like the way he says the best way to say thank you, God, is by letting go of the past and living in the present moment right here and right now. Whatever life takes away from you, let it go. When you surrender and let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. Letting go of the past means you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now.
Oh, that's deep stuff. And it ties back into the power of now. So I
Yep.
love.
And so getting spiritually centered, I just think that so many people need to learn to be impeccable with their word, to not take things personally and not make assumptions, and to always do their best. And just living by those very simple ethos will help you stay spiritually centered for the year.
Those are good ones. I always
So
love.
this next book that we have is, did you have another book before we get into
No,
lose
I don't
weight?
have another one.
So Toni came up with books to lose weight
Because
and
this is
get it.
something people want to do in the new year, not necessarily like our thing,
Okay.
but this is
Lose
one of
weight.
people's 2017 goals things.
Okay. Lose weight and get in shape.
Do you
I'm,
have one?
I'm so, I do. Do you want to hear mine?
I do.
Lose weight and get in shape is Whole30 cookbook for me. I started doing the Whole30. I never really fully completed it, because my lifestyle, let me not make an excuse, because I just did it.
You're a
And
gourmand. You enjoy the finer things, so
at times, but what I really, I adopted the Whole30 lifestyle, and I do it as often as possible. And the Whole30 lifestyle was established by Dallas and Melissa Hartwig in 2009. And it's a nutritional program designed to change your life in 30 days. I'm not a big fan of time periods, it's I do like the idea of from year to year, but 30 days, 2 weeks, all that, I'm not into that. But I do think that the Whole30 sort of cookbook and diet is something that if you can just get used to it, it is very helpful. I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm going to tell you about what it did for me, and then I'm going to share some quotes. But it says, think of it as a short-term nutritional reset designed to help you put an end to unhealthy cravings and habits, restore a healthy metabolism, heal your digestive tract, and balance your immune system. They say certain food groups like sugar, grains, dairy, legumes. So sugar, grains, dairy, and beans could be having a negative impact on your health and fitness without you even realizing it. Are your energy levels inconsistent or non-existent? Do you have aches and pains that can't be explained? And I had a really bad back pain that I just was like, how did I get this? Are you having a hard time losing weight no matter how hard you try? Do you have some sort of skin condition? Or digestive ailments, seasonal allergies, or fertility issues that medication hasn't helped. These symptoms may be directly related to the foods you eat, even the healthy stuff. So,
fertility issues. Wow.
yes. So she says, so how do you know if and how these foods are affecting you? Strip them from your diet completely. Cut out all the psychologically unhealthy, hormone imbalancing, gut disrupting, inflammatory food groups for a full 30 days. Let your body heal and recover from whatever effects those foods may be causing. Push the reset button with your metabolism, systemic inflammation, and the downstream effects on the food choices you've been making. Learn once and for all how the foods you've been eating are actually affecting your day-to-day life and long-term health. So I started doing it, Toni, where when I'm at home and if I'm cooking my foods, I would say 75% of the time I'm using the Whole30 cookbook or just the Whole30 lifestyle. I was taking naproxen for my back pain for years. I don't take it anymore.
Oh, wow.
And so she says, so one of the things that you have to do is drink black coffee. And so
You have
I
to?
drank coffee for years. And she says, It is not hard. Don't you dare tell us this is hard. Quitting heroin is hard. Beating cancer is hard. Drinking your coffee black is not hard. So I've been drinking my coffee black this year. She says, we believe you should consume only foods and drinks that support normal, healthy digestive function. Eating anything that impairs the integrity of your gut impairs the integrity of your health. And she says, belly fat is especially active in this process, contributing to the inflammation more than fat stores in other areas like your butt and thighs. So a lot of times we thick as I don't know what, butt popping, hips popping, gut popping, and we think it's just fat, but a lot of it is inflammation. And so I will tell you that ever since I started really focusing on this Whole30 diet, even when I went to the gym just last week, people were like, you look skinny. It just has gotten rid of that extra oomph.
Okay, I'm sold.
I love it. I love it. And there are so many Instagrams and blogs that do Whole30, so many interesting foods that you can eat. And I used to think like I can't live without carbs or at least, whole grains, like, even if it's brown rice, but I have completely cut out brown rice from my diet.
Oh, wow. So it's a book and a cookbook? You have both?
It is a book that is also a cookbook because they understand that this lifestyle gets boring. So they give you tons of options, to never get bored. And then with all the people who have adopted the lifestyle, they've started all these different blogs. And so it's pretty much like they say, it's just, I would say no sugar, grains, dairy, or legumes, beans, but I like to just say low. I usually do low sugar, grains, dairy, and legumes. So on the days that I can completely avoid sugar, grains, dairy, and legumes, I do. Okay. And if I'm out and I'm at a restaurant, I just try to go low.
Mm-hmm. And you still saw results. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think that my recommendation is the perfect piggyback to that. Again, like we keep talking about, a lot of these life changes are mental in origin. And so my recommendation for this one, losing weight, is called the Beck Diet Solution. Train your brain to think like a thin person. And it's by Judith S. Beck, PhD. And she is from the Beck Institute for Cognitive Therapy and Research. And the huge thing about this book is that it is not a diet. This book is rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. So what she is addressing with this book is the mindset that's required to lose weight and how to train yourself to talk back to your thoughts that actually are the reasons why you don't lose weight or why you have unhealthy eating habits.
Okay.
So it's a weekly program, but before you even begin the program, she has you do all of this prep work. So it doesn't actually recommend a diet. She actually says for you to select a diet that makes sense. So this would work perfectly if somebody wants to try the Whole30. But she also recommends that you pick a backup diet because, as we all know, you might start something and it doesn't work and then you're ready to stop. So she's like, because we know that, like, don't let that be a factor in why you don't achieve your goals because this one diet didn't work. Well, no, you've already planned out what your second choice is if this first one does not work. And so one of the key components of the program is that she has you create advantage response cards. So she really wants you to keep front and center in your thoughts the advantages of why you're trying to make this lifestyle change. And so you create these index cards that list out the benefits. So, I'm going to look sexy in my New Year's Eve dress, or, my boyfriend is going to compliment me on how hot I look, or, I won't be embarrassed when I take pictures, but you're identifying things that are very personal to you. And you look at this card multiple times a day so that it's like, I want that brownie, but the advantage of me sticking to this program is that, I'll feel confident when I go to the beach on my vacation. And I think that when we try to lose weight, there's disconnect, there's disconnect between your thoughts, like, oh, this one cookie won't hurt, or, oh, I can have this fried chicken, and then the actual goal that we have in front of ourselves. And so she encourages you to create this system of reminders so that that's always front and center. So I love this book. I haven't, and again, I think everything that we've been talking about is work. You know, none of this is mindless. None of these changes are mindless. So you really have to commit to these programs. But I think this one is you know, the perfect companion to whatever diet you choose. But
Hmm.
just kind of understanding the thought processes behind this, and it's kind of like how thin people think versus how people who are struggling with their weight think. And just kind of, she has a lot of scales. Like I said, it's rooted in cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's lots of checklists and scales, like your hunger on a scale, identifying the difference between a craving and actual hunger, responses that you say to yourself, you know, when you're confronted with, you know, a tempting treat that's not on your plan. So she just really takes you into the cognitive portion of how to lose weight. And she says that she's like, we're never taught, you know, people roll out this diet, but you know, that doesn't teach you how to talk back to your thoughts. So
Right.
very helpful. So I think
Yeah.
those would be my two, you know, use the Beck diet, and then I'm going to try out the Whole 30. So
Yes, Whole
Whole
30
30.
I like. And I was shocked because I didn't think like I usually am not into anything. Everybody knows I love my Skinny Taste cookbooks. Like that is a no-brainer, but I just the Whole 30 my body responded to that immediately. I'm talking about just weight when I talk about when I really zero in and I'm really dedicated to Whole 30, I can lose like a pound or two a week. Like it just happens. And so I just, I think it's a lot of this whole diet thing is just finding things that work best for your body. And I think I realized that by cutting out some of those things in my diet, the inflammation, things that I thought were fat or whatever, were really just inflammation, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. I did not have a book for your next one. To build your circle and strengthen your friendships.
That's fine. I think that, you know, another thing I think people look at is just relationships in the new year. And just like, I know you talked about, like, okay, I'm going to be hanging out with my friends more. People should come over and I'm going to catch up
Yes.
with you. So I know, you know, a lot of people have that in the new year. And especially for me, you know, like a lot of the changes I've made, I feel less connected with a lot of my friends. And so I just was wondering if you had one for this. Um, I do have a recommendation for kind of, you know, strengthening your friendships and relationships in the new year. And that one is called Friendships Don't Just Happen: The Guide to Creating a Meaningful Circle of Girlfriends by Shasta Nelson.
Okay.
And she's just phenomenal. She's just done a lot of research on women's friendships. And one of the most helpful things in her book is that she has this concept of circles of friendships. And I think all of us have kind of looked at friendships in our lives and how they've shifted and felt like, okay, because, you know, me and my league don't talk every day, that means she's not my real friend because I talk to my real friends every day. Or, you know, because, you know, you didn't come to my baby shower, that means you don't care about me. Just the little things that I think women have in their minds
Yes.
about what we do and what friendship means. And I know you talk about this as well. You're like, I'll get you out of jail. Like, don't worry about me in the baby shower.
Right. I'm gonna take care, but I got you. When you need me, when there's no one there, I'll be there.
But one thing she does is she kind of gives vocabulary to the types of friends that we have. So she has what she calls circles of connectedness. So all the
Okay.
way on the right side, I'm sorry, the left side is kind of less intimate to more intimate. And she breaks down kind of contact friends, which are folks that you might see, you know, when you go to an association meeting, you kind of like, oh, I always see her, you know, at beepers, and, you know, we always speak and laugh or what have you. Common friends, folks that you might, you know, grab a coffee with after Pilates or something like that. Community friends, you know, the folks that you know, don't necessarily have to be at class, but you all are going to make plans to see each other anyway. Committed friends, which are those kind of deep sharing friends, those confidants that you talk to on a regular basis. And then confirmed friends, who are your lifelong friends. You might not talk every day, but you know they're there at your hospital bed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so she talks about, you know, just kind of the expectations that you have. And I think it's helpful to categorize kind of who are these friends, in my life, and maybe I'm expecting somebody to be a committed friend that's a confidant, but because she just got married or she just had a baby, she's a community friend right now, and that's okay. And so she just talks about kind of moving people back and forth. Or if you see, I've got a ton of contact friends, folks that I run into here and there, but I don't have many, committed friends. Like, that's where I need to focus my attention on. So I think that was super helpful because it puts into context kind of some of the changes that I've seen with my friendships over the years. So
that's an amazing, amazing book. I can't wait to share all of these. And so, there was your final question was, what are your 2017 goals? What are those questions you ask everyone every year? And so I think when we first started this podcast, I talked about how, really thinking about 2017 based on what I felt like 2016 went like. And my plan for 2017 is to really buckle down and get more focused. I realized two big mistakes.
You need to get more focused?
I know. Everybody says that. How can you get more focused? And I do believe that I can get more focused. And I feel like I realized two big mistakes that I've made this year. One was committing to way too many things way too early. Like, I literally wore myself out. So literally just this month, I've had like 5 people or organizations try to book me for things in 2017, something in January, something in April, things in May, June, July. And today I'll look at my calendar and there's nothing there. And I'm like, oh God, yeah, I can do it. I have nothing. But it's like, my life doesn't work like that. Like, my calendar is only free for the moment. And I think that I allowed myself to just book all this stuff that I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted. Second thing I realized that I did wrong, or I just wasn't good at, and this was probably my hardest, most vulnerable thing. Like, for me, I really try to get I try not to BS myself. Like, if I had to really say what is something that I sucked at, and I think me about this from working with me, is just really buckling down on my hiring, interviewing, and training process. I can't hire, interview, train, promote based on nostalgia, based on how I wish people would have treated me or what I wish people would have done. And it's like, I have to hire the right people for the right jobs. And when they don't hit their marks, I don't promote them, because what happens is that I'm doing all these things and then I'm disappointed. And then, as you know, then you have to end it. And then it's just bad, and it's not that you don't ever have to fire people, but I felt like if I had to really look at myself, I had to stop this nostalgia bullshit and really just call it what it is. Like, I am very passionate about young Black women. And it's like, I was just making way too many concessions because I just wish that people would have done these things for me. And I felt like I got into a cycle of nostalgia versus a cycle of true facts.
That's very, very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So how do those play into kind of your goals for 2017? So you're going to do different things with scheduling and...
Yeah, my goals. So how that works for 2017 is that I have nothing booked for 2017. Nothing. So I have had people reach out to me, and I haven't said no, but I have not said yes either. And I just just don't know. I don't know. And I am just, if I feel like doing something, I will. And if I don't, I also won't. And so that's something, like, there hasn't been a year that I've gone into, Toni, where I didn't have things booked and paid already on my calendar. So to go into January 1 and know that I don't belong to anyone is amazing. How I'm going to change my hiring process is that I spent, and I haven't told you this, and I haven't really told anybody this, but I have spent a great deal of time reading, researching, talking to other people in the space about hiring. So one book that I read that I really enjoyed, and I haven't shared it because I'm like, if people will be able to read this and know, but it's one book that's called Hiring the Best. And that book taught me how to One thing that I felt like I wasn't doing in the interview process is that I wasn't sort of like intimidating or flustering people enough, because I need to know, do you get intimidated or will you get flustered when I'm operating at 10? You know how I get when I'm on 10.
Sorry.
You know how I get. And if somebody can't handle me at 10, they won't be a good fit.
So it's
And
better for you to show them 10 instead of
yes,
that nice, polite, hi, nice to meet you.
yes.
Welcome to the Curl Boss office. So let me rattle your chain right here and now.
Yeah, shit's about to get real. And that's the thing that I was just like, I have to start. So one thing that I started doing, and I've done this and I feel like it has worked, is that I've got to rattle you early, because I need to see who you are. Because if you are sensitive and I'm hard. I'm hard. And I think that I used to try to cover that up, or I just wanted to feel better about it, or like way, way back, however many books ago, when I was just talking about being soft and being small. And that's not who I am. And so I don't even want you to think that that's what this experience would be. I am not small, sweet, quiet, or modest. You know what I mean? Like I am big in all that I do. And so that book teaches you how to sort of fluster people in the interview to see how they would respond in a work environment. So I really enjoyed that one. And one book that I really loved, it's the Chick-fil-A. I have it as the Chick-fil-A book for team building, but it's written by the HR person. I think her name's Dana, who's been at Chick-fil-A forever. And it's called It's My Pleasure: The Impact of Extraordinary Talent and a Compelling Culture. And it's just about really working, I think the hardest part of my job, which you may know this or maybe you don't know, is like trying to keep a team of people to extraordinary talent together and inspired and motivated, and, as well as myself. Most of us are just focusing on ourselves, and to have to divide my personal priorities with not just one, not just two, not just three, not just four, not just five people, but several people, it's tough. And so those are my very vulnerable goals. Those are the things that I'm going to be those are the things that I sort of worked on in secret this year, that I didn't tell everybody, and things that I'm going to continue to build upon for next year.
Very revealing. Thank you. I don't really have, I'm, going to go through kind of some of my books and kind of really take a step back. I've had just such a whirlwind year. And I think when you talk about kind of mistakes or missteps over the year, one of the things that I saw this year is that, I was just so driven against achieving some particular goals that I let the rest of my life slip. Like I was talking about with the Jeff Johnson book. So, okay, I got some boxes checked off, but just in terms of Toni and who I am and what I need to be refreshed and how I need to show up for people, I let those things fall. So like with the Laura Casey book, did I really make what matters happen? Or, did I just do things to the exclusion of kind of those deeper things? And I mean, you'll be the first person to say you've got to sacrifice when you're trying to achieve your goals. And that means you won't be able to make every party or have every phone conversation. But for me and my sanity, like my relationships are very important. My creative outlets are very important. And I need to make sure that I am organized enough and disciplined enough, as Stephen Pressfield talks about, that I'm professional enough to really make sure that I've got those systems in place so that I can have the time to be, the Toni that I want to be. And so, that's kind of my goal. So my word, I try to pick a word for the year. And my word for 2017 is order.
Ooh.
Yeah, order. Order is a good one. But I think my goals, I kind of have themes, and it's love and legacy. So like I referenced with the calling in the one, I really want to focus on kind of my personal blocks to getting the relationship that I'm looking for. And then the legacy portion of making a larger impact. So now that I'm in a particular position, I have success in some areas, I want to share that with as many people as I can. And so I want to just kind of make sure that it's not just, me with my head down, behind the computer, just working to better my life, but how can I share what I have with others? So what those actually shake out to in terms of SMART goals, a specific, measurable, I can't say. But those are kind of my themes that I'll be thinking about over the next couple weeks. And I'll be kind of tracking in my, my journal.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think if I was trying to think as you were saying, like, what is your word for the year? I don't know. I got to think about that. And maybe my next podcast will be me revealing my word for the year. But something that I've already decided is that, like, every year I go into the year saying, I'm going to take X amount of time off. Like, I've been having a goal to take 2 months off forever. I have never even taken 2 weeks off. So I'm talking about taking 2 months off. So my goal for next year is to take 2 weeks off, 2 consecutive weeks.
Oh,
I'm
wow.
like,
Okay.
yeah, not 2 months, but 2 consecutive weeks. And so that is my goal, is to do 2 consecutive weeks off. And I want to do them by myself. So, that I'm in a relationship. So I talked about 2 weeks since we've been together, we've done 1 week vacation together. So we have agreed that we want to try to do 2 weeks vacation together. And then I want to do 2 weeks by myself, which would make 1 month, but I usually end up working on the vacation. So, like a working 2 week vacation and then a complete 2 weeks off on my own. That is my goal. We shall revisit and see if that actually happens.
Good deal. I'm going to hold you to it. So I will expect to see you planning it, and we'll all rally around you and help everything go smoothly so that you can have your 2 weeks. I love it.
Yeah, I want to do 2 weeks. And I just think that like you said, I just have to do it and be done with it. So, that's my plan. And I just don't know where I'm going. I kind of want to go to the French Riviera. I know, girl. I don't know, but shoot, even if I just go down the street.
If you just got to Savannah.
Yeah. Unlike most people, I literally I work every single day of my life. Every single
It's hard
day.
to disconnect. It's super hard. To disconnect.
And I like it. This is not a complaining thing, but it's like I work Sunday to Sunday. Every day I'm working on something. And I just think that it would be good for me to not work for 2 weeks. Like, some people, they don't work on weekends, and over time they accumulate this time. I don't have any time accumulated, and it would be nice to do that.
Those are good goals.
So, yes. So how am I going to be using my journal this year? Mine is very simple, is that I have to stick with using one journal this year. I got scattered lately, and I've been like journaling. Girl, I got like 5 different places that I'm journaling and doing my to-do list. And so my goal for 2017 is to stay in one book. And what usually happens is, like, I'm like, oh, this is too heavy. There's no room in my bag. And so then I take a thinner something or a smaller, and it's just like to just get over it and try to put it all in one place.
I can't condone that. You have journals. I have a notebook line. So I'm an advocate of multiple notebooks. So I can't get behind that one. But good luck.
Good luck. How are you journaling this year? What are you going to be doing?
I don't have a plan for it. So I have a journal, and I didn't really journal this year, which is crazy because when you actually are living life, you really don't have to sit and just lament or just, kind of pour out on the page. This is what's going on. You're too busy living life.
Right.
So you kind of miss a lot of the highs. So really this year, I think my journaling, kind of with your hustle journal that you have, I'm going to be using that to work on my business. And then, just kind of with that order as my word, I just really want to get more diligent about kind of my to-dos and just kind of getting a system for keeping track of the things that I need to accomplish with my notebooks. So maybe I can do 2 notebooks, 2 to 3.
Got it. Wow. All right. So this is probably the longest podcast I've ever done in life.
We have talked these people's ears off.
Where can everybody find you, Toni?
So I am on Instagram at Urban Luxe Life. And so that's where you can find everything related to me and my stationery line, Urban Luxe Papery.
Awesome. We thank you so much for listening, and we hope you enjoy books to get your ish together in the new year. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a happy